Welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting. It's 3:10 and we'll recommence here. Just an update for those viewers that are just joining us now. We are coming back to item 9.1 on our agenda, which is our water and wastewater rate study and water financial plan. The reason that we've scheduled this event specifically to start at 3 o'clock is to correspond with our consultant that is going to be doing the presentation. So what we're going to do first is we'll put the resolution on the floor. We'll get a mover and a seconder. At that point, I'll hand it over to staff. They can introduce our consultant and get the presentation. It's good. So the recommendations of the Council of Township Whitewater Region. 1, approve the water financial plan prepared by Water 16th, 2025. Accept the water and wastewater rate study dated 13th, 2020 as a guiding document. And 3, adopt the recommendations contained within both documents. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Good, and with that, I'll hand the floor over to our treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. So just wanted to start with the background. So the township retained Watson Associates Economists Limited in 2024 as part of the budget to complete the water and wastewater rate study and prepare the water financial plan as part of the 5 submission requirements to obtain the drinking water license per the Safe Water Drinking Act or Safe Drinking Water Act in 2002, which currently the license expires in 2025 in September. Joining us today from Watson Associates is Managing Partner Daryl Abbs. Daryl has been with Watson Associates since 2015, and he has assisted in the analysis and presentation of water and wastewater studies, stormwater rate studies, development charge studies, and fiscal impact studies. To date, Daryl has worked on over 30 water and wastewater rate studies, including the Township's 2019 study. Many of you may have remembered him from that. He's also done other townships within the province. He holds a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Administration with honors in economics from McMaster University and a Master of Business Economics from Brock University. With that, I'll pass it over to Daryl to begin his presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the introduction, Chris, and here, thank you to the members of council. I have a presentation. Would you like me to share that? Happy to do so.
Yes, please.
Okay, I just sent the request to share. Okay, so we'll go a little bit through a presentation on the study purpose, why we're doing this, talk a little bit about your current rate structure, the number of customers you have, the anticipated growth that we're anticipating for the next 10 years, capital needs and the needs of the system, and then we'll talk about some of the review we've done on potential costs of metering, and looking at the categories of rates that you have. And then we'll conclude with finalizing with the discussion about the water financial plan, and then happy to answer any questions that you may have. And so generally the purpose for taking these studies, as Kurt mentioned, is we have to undertake a water financial plan for the purposes of obtaining the water license. But as well, what it does is it gives you a chance to review the capital and costs that are required to accommodate the system over the next 10 years. In addition to that, what we're doing is reviewing the rate structure. So looking at the different customer categories that you have, because you are on a fixed, you don't have meters currently, so you do have just rate categories for different customers. If we want to take a look at that, and as well take a look at the potential cost of metering and what that might mean if you were planning to implement that in the future. And so when we look at determining what the appropriate wastewater rates are, what they need to be, there's a lot of legislation that guides why we do this and what we look at. And so over the years, there's been a number of pieces of legislation. Some of them have come into effect, some are partially in effect. But the main principle of this, since the Walkerton crisis back in the early 2000s, is the principle of full cost recovery. And so we want to make sure that the rates that are identified are recovering the full cost to maintain and operate the system. In addition to that, in 2015, the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity brought in the requirements for asset management. And now, this upcoming year, is municipalities across the province need to identify the appropriate financing strategy to ultimately pay for, maintain, and replace all of the assets in the system. So all of that needs to be incorporated into this principle of full cost recovery when we're identifying what the rates need to be. And so with your current rate structure, you have a number of categories that pay flat rate because you only have 3 customers that are currently on meters. So for those that are on meters, at the bottom you can see the volume charge, which is based on the cubic meters of volume used. For the other categories, it's a flat rate. And so for residential customers, the flat rate every 2 months is $201.42. And for wastewater, it's $326.46. And then you have various categories for small commercial, medium commercial, high and large commercial, and then for vacant properties. You have a reduced rate given that if they're vacant, they're not utilizing water. So what that means is the total number of customers currently is about 1,100. And what we need to do to undertake the calculations is we need to assign each category a rating. So based on their rates, so the high and large commercial users will pay 2 times the rate of a residential. That means they're equivalent to customers for 1 residential customer. So instead of 23 customers in our analysis, it's actually 46 residential equivalent customers. So we're looking at 1,112 weighted customers for water and 532 for wastewater. So when we're looking at the capital needs, the operating needs, and we're trying to determine what the rates need to be, we want to incorporate the rates that's identified in the development study and some other planning documents. And so we're looking at growing about 45 customers over the next 10 years for water and about 27 customers for wastewater. So when we took a look at the capital needs, we took a look at the most recent capital budget, took a look at the 2020 development charge background study, review of the asset management plan and those requirements to fully fund the asset management requirements. And so we took a look at the need, the timing, and the costs, and what we're able to come up with is a capital forecast with a number of projects identified. And what we've identified over the 10-year period is about $6.7 or $6.8 million of capital costs that will need to be incurred over the next 10 years for water. And for wastewater, that's $2.46 million. And so we can identify those capital costs, but then we need to identify how we're going to finance those capital costs, how we're going to pay for them. And so we've identified that we're going to pay for them through reserves. Through the rates, we're going to take the money, put it into the reserves, into the bank account, and then pay for the capital needs. A small portion will be funded from development charges, utilizing debt financing for some of the larger project costs, and utilizing grants where they've been identified. And so the starting point of all the funding is, well, how much money do we have in the reserve? And so we have $236,000 in capital reserve for water at the end of 2023. We did start the forecasting analysis beginning in 2024. And then we'll get a small amount in development reserve funds for both water and wastewater, and again, a small amount in the sewage system debenture reserve for wastewater. And so what that means is when we're identifying the capital needs and the operating costs and the potential rates that are required to fund this, we're identifying about $4.9 million in debt for water and $1 million in debt for wastewater. In addition, the majority of the remaining costs will come from the water reserve or the wastewater reserve, those reserves that we're trying to build up over the forecast. So I mentioned as part of the capital needs, we need to look at your asset management requirements. And so when we take a look at the total replacement cost of your water system, it's about $75, almost $76 million. And when we look at the wastewater system, it's about $33 million. So if we take a look at that, look at the assets and when they should be replaced based on average lives of the different types of infrastructure, it would say that you should be spending or setting aside in the bank account about $1.17 million every year for water and about $550,000 for wastewater, just to ensure that you can replace the assets when they're required. When we took a look at the operating budget, we started with the current operating budget, and we used 2% inflation, which we know the inflationary environment's been relatively high recently, but it started to come back down to a normal 2%. For things like fuel, utilities, chemicals, we've increased it at a little bit higher percent at 5%. And so when we put those two things together, the operating costs and then the capital-related costs, which is really the money we're going to put into the bank accounts to pay for the capital needs or the money we're going to spend on debt. The blue on the bottom of the graph here for the water operating budget, you can see how it just increases at a small percentage, a couple percent over time. But you can see the capital-related needs in the red, they're increasing over the forecast period, and that's really to deal with the asset management requirements and paying the debt required for the additional capital costs. And so you can see that goes from about $1.5 million in 2025 all the way up to about $2.4 million by the end of the 10-year forecast. When we're looking at the wastewater operating budget, it's going from about $1.4 million up to about $1.89 million by the end of that 10-year forecast. And so as part of this review, we wanted to take a look at those customer categories, right? And so when we looked at those categories, what we wanted to do was see that if we don't have meters, in the absence of meters, can we look to other communities to see for some typical types of developments, let's say for car washes or laundromats, what kind of volume usage do we see in other communities relative to a residential classification? And so, based on this review, what we were recommending is to identify a new category of high commercial, so kind of a tier 2, which would be about 10 times the residential rate. Because when we did the review, things like car washes, laundromats, breweries were actually much higher than 10 times. But we thought that, you know, going to anything higher would be a large jump. It's still a large jump, but this would be a bit in the middle of that jump. And I think this is really indicative of potentially the need or the consideration of having meters. Is to moving towards meters means that people can pay with what they use. And if they have meters, they say, well, I can use 200 cubic meters of water. I can pay based on 200 cubic meters of water. At this point, these categories are an estimate of these different types of uses. So recommended changes, putting hair salons into the medium commercial and moving the field down to the small commercial based on some of the uses we've seen in other communities. So what that means is when we do the rating of the customers, we have a total number of customers that's higher, which means in our calculations, the denominator in calculations is higher, which would decrease the burden on the typical residential users. And so in that discussion of metering, we wanted to take a look at what would the costs be and what implementation look like. And so we took a look at, actually the City of Timmins did a review of these relatively recently. And so we took a look at some costs and practices in Renfrew, Greater Sudbury, City of North Bay, and City of Timmins. And there's really two different types of meters. The whole review you can do when you're potentially getting to that point. But the cost is about $740,000 to about $890,000 would be the initial capital cost to install meters throughout the township. Once they're installed, there's some ongoing operating costs. And what we've observed in some other communities that installed meters was that there was actually an operating savings because the reduction in the volumes that were being utilized by the community saved money on things like hydro and chemicals, those things that vary with usage. So as there was a reduction in the volumes, there was actually a savings on the operating cost side of things. So potentially an estimated savings of about $50,000 a year in operating costs. There will be some additional annual capital fees to save for the asset management requirements for those meters. But overall, it would be a marginal increase in operating costs to install meters. And so one of the considerations is, let's say you're considering meters and you wanted to install them, let's say in 2030, then you can move to a volumetric rate. The key recommendation would be to continue with the flat rate for a couple of years so that you can receive data on what the actual volumes are from the different customers. And then you can transition slowly into a potential volumetric rate. So as part of the analysis, if you're going to implement in, let's say, for example, 2030, you can have full implementation of a typical base charge and volume rate by 2034. So what this means for next year, as part of the calculations, we've incorporated the schedules here. I won't read all of the numbers specifically, but for the residential users on the water side, it's $211.49, that bi-monthly flat rate, and on the wastewater side, it's $339.52. And what that represents is a 5% increase per year for the forecast for water, and for wastewater, 4% until 2029, dropping down to 3%, and then typical inflation. So overall, someone who's on water and wastewater, it will be 4% per year until 2030, and then 3% per year thereafter. And so what that means relative to some of the neighboring municipalities, the relative position doesn't change, still at the higher end, based on 200 cubic meters. So increasing that amount that was noted, still in the same relative position on the high end. In terms of the water financial plan, I'll actually jump to the last slide. Because really what the water financial plan is when we undertake the rate study, we look at everything on a cash flow basis, so the operating costs, the capital costs, the reserves. And then what we need to do is we need to take that, translate it to accounting, create forward-looking financial statements, and that's what's included in the financial plan report. So it's all the same information, just in accounting terms, in forward-looking financial statements. So with that concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abbas. That is an excellent summary of a very large document, and I really appreciated you were very clear in that in your presentation on a number of very complex items. So, thank you. And with that, I'm going to open it up to council for questions or comments. Unless staff, is there something you want to say before I open it up?
No, not this time.
Excellent. Okay, so our mover is Councillor Moore. You'll get to go first.
Thank you. It was a very informative report, and I'm just wondering, and I'm going to put you on the spot since how you're our guest. Is there any way of telling out there what the average municipality, such as us, do they put meters into commercial to try and get a handle on that, or do they do residential first, or do they necessarily do them all at once? Can you answer that?
Yeah, so through the mayor, it's a great question. I think most municipalities would start with the larger water users, so they'll start with the non-residential users, maybe those high commercial users, and by implementing a larger category charge, like for the high commercial users, potentially would incentivize moving to meters for those users so that they could actually pay based on their volumes. So yeah, I think it would be typically start with the higher volume users, the non-residential users, and then move towards the residential over time.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Okay, I'll turn over to the seconder, Councillor Olmsted.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the in-depth study on that. I really don't have any questions. I've been deeply involved as part of the task force along the way. Very scary proposition when you talk about full cost recovery for these services. When you have a water system worth about $75 million and a wastewater plant worth $33 million, and they want us to put away about almost 1.7 million a year to maintain these. That's to put away, not just run them. And to have, the discussion about meters, non-meters, commercial, high, low commercial, rate studies, it makes everything more fair per user, but it really doesn't solve the issue of, we're too high already, and it's going to continue to get higher. In any studies that we looked at, like Curtis helped me with the name of that report that we're part of now with the communities. The BMA report clearly shows that we're dealing with some issues of pricing, and the common denominators of everybody we're comparing against is every single one of them is a bigger community than ours with more users, and it's simple math by that point. So, in my opinion, I think we have three choices: whether reduce services, which we can't. You're legislated that we can't reduce water and sewer services. You can lobby higher levels of government for help, and that has we've been trying that, and that has an end date. Or we can add users, and over the lifespan, we have 10 years of looking at this study. We need to add users to help maintain these costs, to not go. Yeah, we've done a very good job of keeping I think it was 2 to 4% increases per year, which is remarkable versus where we've been. But the only way we're going to be able to help our residents and help our ratepayers is to grow, and not grow by 2 or 3 or 4 houses a year. We need development, whether it's in apartment buildings or whatever. We need sustainable growth to help maintain these costs. And I really don't see any other way out of this, unless somebody dies and leaves us a whole whack of money, or the government's good enough to us to help out. But every community is going to be in this situation. Every rural community is eventually going to be in this situation. So we're perfect geography-wise to continue to grow our municipality. We've done a great job the last few years, and I think we need to keep on that trajectory as best we can. Thank you. That's my comments.
Excellent. Grow. We'll come back to that one another time. Other comments or questions from members of council? And I know it's a huge report, but Councillor Trim.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Those numbers, I concur with Councillor Olmsted, are really scary, big numbers. But going through this, I really can't see the argument for meters, the financial argument. Like, I don't see a payback time. If we were to install meters, even gradually or incrementally, I don't see how that's going to solve our problem. And I don't know when, and I know there's initial capital outlay, and there's ongoing upkeep and costs for that. I just don't know when the payback is, and how it's going to solve the rate problem. I couldn't find that in there in your report, so I still don't know where we're going with that. But I do appreciate the report. Thank you.
Could I get you, Mr. Abbas, can you comment on that? Just that outlay, the cap, how do they ever pay back?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it wouldn't necessarily be a payback. It is going to be an additional cost. There is some operating cost savings potentially as people start to use less water, given that they can actually control their billing by using less water. So the really benefits are twofold. It's that residents get control of their water bill. If I want to use less water on less, so I can pay a smaller bill, I can do that. And then as well, it provides a level of equity amongst the users. So right now, the equity is based on these different categories that we have set and that are estimated, right? But if we're moving to meters that are based on the volume they use, potentially there's really, really high users. Maybe they're using more than 10 times a typical residential. So really what it does is provide a level of equity between the categories, which might actually bring the residential rates down a little bit relative to those other categories.
And if council will allow me to do a follow-up, just because we're on that topic before I ask for other questions. So your equity is the key message that I'm hearing about meters. But the cost to obtain that equity is almost $1 million outlay. So each individual user is going to have to pay in order to get that equity, and it's going to cost them $1 million into 500 users. That's correct. Does anybody crunch that number? What does that mean per?
1,100 users.
Oh, 1,100 users, right, because of the weighted number of users. So you're still talking about a substantial cost in order to buy that equity. That's going to have to be considered as part of any decision on meters as we go forward. Is that fair? Does that solicit any other? Mr. Abbas, I'll give you the opportunity. Have I got that correct?
Yeah, you have that correct.
Good. Okay, with that, I'll open the floor back up. Is there any other questions or comments that members of council have on this report? Yes, Councillor Moore?
Just a comment I'm a water user myself. I'm not on the sewer, but I'm on the water. So I, now being a senior on fixed income, do grapple with the expenses. But if we were to implement a meter system, the water usage should go down. Therefore, the water discharge in the wastewater treatment plant should go down as well, which will help initial costs. It's not helping to divert money that we have to pay to get the meters and or regular updates, but our usage should be down, therefore our costs should be down, but that can be worked into an annual budget at that time. And that's the only benefit I see of getting meters, even though we'd have to go in debt on $1 million to purchase the meters. So to override one or the other, I really, at this point, meters are probably the way to go to shorten the use that the people are using, and in the long term it would pay. But with 1,100 users, it would make a difference, I guess. If we had 25,000 users, it would be we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because it's 1,100 users, it really puts council in a predicament. We don't know which way to go.
Good. I'm just going to jump in on one thing, that if I could again, insert myself in the discussion. Councillor Moore, you make a great point about decreased consumption, and it ties back into Councillor Olmsted's initial point where we need growth. Well, we need capacity for that growth. The meters may not just pay for equity or provide equity, they may also be able to support the growth, we'll be able to have more water available for these additional housing units. So you've identified a second great positive item about meters. That's good. Mr. Abbas, please confirm or deny.
That's exactly correct.
Okay, good. Any other questions from the floor on this? If not, I've got a couple, but I want to wait till you guys are done. Okay. Good. The item, in your recommendations, I don't know, clerk, can we pull the recommendations up on one of the screens? Yep. Good. Recommendations, so I'll start with 8. It's out of order. But recommendation number 8, when it talks about development charge analysis, Mr. Abbas, can you explain in plain language what you mean by that recommendation?
Yeah, happy to. There's reductions in the development charges by law. And so I think when the development charge rates were identified and the study was put in place and the bylaw was put in place, council reduced the rates for water and wastewater through a discretionary reduction. You have the ability to reduce the rates if you so choose. So when we did the calculations, we actually calculated a higher rate, but council chose to implement the lower rate. And so what that means is all the amount that's been discounted needs to be funded from the wastewater rates. So if you were to consider charging the full amount of the development charge, so as new development comes in, they pay the full development charge, that would require less money to come from the water and wastewater rates.
Yeah, good. I think I understand. I see staff want to jump in on this point, so yes, please, Manager Public Works.
Yes, just a further comment. In the DC study, it was recommended that the wastewater DC would be approximately 7,200, and then the water was almost 1,200. And I believe the treasurer right now, we currently our DCs for water and wastewater are 1,000 each.
1,500.
15 each, sorry.
1,500.
Good. So that is something that we would subsequently have to consider. Okay, good. The other comment I'll make is on 6 and 7, and this is to our staff. So if council chooses to endorse these 8 recommendations, can you provide any insight as to how 6 and 7 would be incorporated into the existing work plan? Do we have the capacity to do 6 and 7? Would it have to be hired out? That's basically the meter study.
Sorry. Yeah, so the investigation of the meters, so we would need the cost benefit of what the meter would cost, and then what the cost implications would be for each plant. So if meters were installed, what would be the water consumption that we used? Would ultimately, if you less consumption, this for growth, and then also with cost for chemicals and for hydro would be reduced from what it currently is. And on the wastewater side, our current plan, a lot of it is pumped, so the larger cost is with hydro costs. What would the cost difference if we had less wastewater going into the system?
Yeah, if I'll add, I would think that for 2025, it is probably not operationally possible without significantly affecting our departmental work plan to fulfill that this year. If those 2 items are a priority of council, we could evaluate whether or not they could be done in-house, that evaluation, as a project for 2026, be at the earliest. Thanks.
And that would be automatically, that consideration would be triggered as a part of this resolution?
Yes, and we'd probably discuss it again at the budget for the budget for 2026 and departmental work plans for 2026. Thanks.
Perfect. The next one, I think I'll throw back at Mr. Abbas. Maybe the staff will jump in here. But the funding plan that includes debentures and taking from reserves and, of course, the rate use, it has an assumption that there are 0 grants obtained in order to do those works. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just going to double check because I believe there was a small grant, but I think for the future grants, we did not include any assumption on receiving a grant for future projects. Typically, that's a practice because you don't want to include that you're going to potentially get grant funding and then not get it, and then your rates aren't high enough to provide for full cost recovery. So those future projects, we would exclude any potential grants.
No, I think that's a great approach. Sorry, Treasurer, you want to insert?
Sorry, if I may. The only one we did account for was a small portion of OSIF funding. because in this year, for 2025's budget, we allocated what we get as OSIF from the water wastewater systems to actually back to those systems to help support them, because that's the reason we received that funding in the first place. And we've carried that through. I've done a projection for it and provided that to Watson Associates, and they've carried that through flatlined past 2026 as an allocation back into fund some of that capital cost, because that's what it can fund is capital costs, capital infrastructure investments. So part of the rate is subsidized by that piece being put back for the next 10 years.
Yeah, makes sense. And sorry, and I'll jump to that OSIF number. Is it calculated on the asset management numbers that Mr. Abbas has provided in the report, or the previous ones that were used in the OSIF distribution?
It was on the previous ones, but I've actually done back calculations to recalculate on the new numbers, and that's why it stops at 2026 and levels out at that point in time, because that is the set value that I feel is going to be what it's going to wind up at when we finish off the actual allocations.
Okay, so the current rate plan is the most up-to-date using these asset management plan numbers?
You've got it.
Okay, good, good. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't any room. I'm trying to find room. Good. So if we do receive a grant, and I know Manager of Public Works is in the middle of applying for one right now, that's come up about water safety, public water safety or something to that effect. Again, to apply to our projects. How does that process, if we are successful in a grant, how does that process work to come in and recalculate the rate real time so that we can realize savings from our resident level when possible? And I'm going to go to the Manager of Public Works first, and then the Treasurer, and then I'll come back to Mr. Abacus, or Abbas.
Yes, for example, one that you're applying to, staff will bring a report next council meeting for approval to apply for that grant. One of it's the Cobden water treatment plant upgrades. As you notice in table 2.1 of the report, there's a $2 million project slated for 2028. What staff I recommended to Watson's is to provide to include a rehab. So, for example, the filter number 1 that we're all aware of, that we put in for actual rehab of that one, which is part of that $2 million project. Staff will be applying for an actual replacement, and that project would be a lot more than $2 million. We're applying for example, it would be like a $5 million project, but the township portion would be approximately $2 million. So and that's how we're applying our funding, is to match our rate study.
Good. And Treasurer, did you have something to add?
No, just the offset would be is the rate study is kind of setting it up that anything would be debentured in big capital projects. The option would be is if, as we receive grants, that would then offset and not need to debenture the money. So that's kind of where they're sitting in whenever you look at the rate study as a piece of that debenture line. That's what we'd be kind of chewing away at, is receiving grants that we don't have to repay back, so we don't incur the interest costs, we don't incur those carrying costs, which is the biggest thing that affects these systems right now, because it's a very few amount of users, and for the most part we have to do 30-year debentures in order to actually keep the annual payments small enough to not create a large impact to those users. That's the impact of these grants, is it gives us the ability to raise the portion we need to as a municipality, be it 27% or 25% or 50% even, but getting that other 50% just means that much smaller of a debenture, that much smaller of a repayment, and that much easier on the users. And that's the whole purpose of these grants, and hopefully we are successful in this next venture. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see. We're going to talk about AMO delegations again, but Mr. Abbas, did you have anything to add to any of the comments that we just had?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think that's, I think staff said it very well. If there was significant grants that, really reduce how much you need to spend on capital projects, you could update the rate calculations very quickly. Staff could just give me a call and I can just update those.
Oh, excellent. Good. Well, thank you for that offer. Free work, I'm assuming, right? Just to make sure. Oh, look, I even saw the nod. Okay, so as long as we see that. Okay, good, and I appreciate that because whatever the chances that could happen. Okay, last comment I'll make is just about growth. I know that the numbers in the study, you're using the DC study numbers for number of new residences that are planning to occur. I know we've had subdivisions planned and at different stages of approval here in Cobden. Is there any comment from staff about how valid that DC growth study is? Is this a reasonable point of reference for us to make this rate study?
If I could just ask Mr. Abs if he could, I believe that the projections presented in this revised water wastewater rate study, are they in fact the data taken from the DC?
Our current DC.
Our current development charge, like the number of permits being issued in the last few years? Yeah, so I think the development charge background study had a high projection of homes being constructed. Which we're probably not hitting those numbers. But the new study is reflective of more recent trends in housing. So I think it's safe to say that the numbers in the present report are relative to what's currently occurring in our community. When and if, at the discretion of council, we choose to look at our development charges, we'd be required, and Daryl, who is also an expert in development charges, could also assist in advising us that those projections probably need to be updated to reflect more current trends. He's nodding there. So if we go down the route of our DCs to examine opportunities to generate more revenue for water, wastewater, among other services, that we would reevaluate the trends altogether. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate all these responses, but at this point in time, I don't have any other questions that I want to table out. But before I hand it back to staff, is there any other comments? Does that trigger anything for other members of council? Okay, good. Treasurer, last word.
Thank you. I just wanted to put a couple notes out there just to highlight a few areas. So the new 10 times rate. So all these recommended rates would become effective the January 1, 2026. So they'll be incorporated into the 2026 budget whenever we start through the deliberations and the creation of that to create the rates. The Tier 2, which is the high commercial, the 10 times residential rate, would be effective to the hair salons, car washes, laundromats, cement plants, and breweries. So those would be the ones that would fall under that category, that 10 times. And then the other side that I wanted to just highlight is this rate study itself was not necessary to be done in order for the financial plan. The council decided to push for it earlier to incorporate all new infrastructure that's kind of come along. The wastewater treatment plant was one that was on the verge of being done whenever the 2019 plan was originally done, like the rate study. So it was undertaken early. By undertaking that rate study early, we did a comparison between what the 2019 study said for the 2029 rate versus what it now says for the 2029 rate. So for 2019's study, the 2029 rate was $1,631 for water. Now for 2029, it's at $1,469. So it's a decrease of $162, hence leveling off that increase amount and not being to the point that it was originally predicting for 2029 per the old study. Wastewater seen a slight increase, and that's because of the addition of the wastewater treatment plant being included now. It went from $21.96 to $22.91, so that's an increase of $95. But overall, in 2029, the old study said it would have been $3,828 annually for water, wastewater here in Cobden. And the new study for 2029 says $3,760, which is an overall decrease of $68. So it has created a more leveled approach in, because if anyone remembers the 2019 study, the first 2 years were a 60% increase and a 10% increase for the first 2 years, and that was a big jump up. This study is very flat-lined across and is very similar to the rate we actually did this year of 3% on par on both. So it creates a more leveled structure across and a more even amount of increase for actual ratepayers. Because whenever I looked at it, the annual increase between now to 2034 is $140.25. Thank you.
Good. I'm not seeing any other comments or hands up from members of council. We will call for the vote. All those in favor? And it is carried. And first of all, I just wanted to thank Mr. Abbas for your presentation today and all the grueling questions. I really appreciate taking the time. This is an important issue here in our community, one that's not resolved. Although we have a very beautiful report now, we still have some of the very highest rates. So we have to continue to advocate. We have to continue to encourage additional users on the system. We have to continue to encourage ensuring the system has the capacity for additional users. So there's still lots of work, and now I will be looking for the staff to come back with that work plan to implement each one of those 8 recommendations. Good. With that, I am recognizing that we are 4 minutes ahead of schedule. So we will call for a recess. That recess will take 45 minutes. We will reconvene here at 4:45 p.m. I'm looking at the CAO. He's looking puzzled.
To the clerk, did we vote on the resolution that was there? Because I know we've
Yes.
been, okay, good, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So we will reconvene at 4:45 p.m. Excellent. And welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting. It's Wednesday, May 21st, and we are calling ourselves back to order here at 4:49 p.m. And just a review of what's happened so far, we have gotten through to item 9.5 on the agenda. It included a 3 p.m. presentation on water and wastewater. And we are going to continue here with item 9.6, tiered medical response. And just to highlight that this is a result of Councillor Bell's original notice of motion to ask for this investigation. So the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the fire department's enhanced level of service by, 1, authorizing the preparation of a tiered medical response agreement with the County of Renfrew Paramedic Service, 2, authorizing staff to initiate training and certification programs, including the 2025 budget adjustments, and 3, directing staff to amend the establishing and regulating bylaw to incorporate the tiered medical response agreement. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Tabbert. And the fire chief's going to present the excellent.
Thank you. So March 20th, 24, Councillor Bell put forth a notice of motion directing Township of Whitewater Region staff to investigate the cost and impact of increasing our service level to provide first response basic life support, including defibrillation, artificial respiration, and CPR, and to direct staff to engage with county paramedics. So in going forward with this, I think it's important to note that these types of agreements are very common in fire departments across Ontario. Not as common in Renfrew County, but certainly across other areas in Ontario, both career and volunteer, to provide some form of tiered medical response. Preliminary discussions with the County of Renfrew Paramedic Service addressed potential call volumes. Although the exact data wasn't available at the time, it's not expected this is going to be a significant increase in calls, probably looking at 20 to 25 or less each year. An explanation of what a tiered response agreement could look like and would look like, as put out by the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, Emergency Health Services, Ministry of Community Safety and Correction Services, and the Office of the Fire Marshal from fall of 2025. A tiered response agreement is a formal written document negotiated between 2 or more public or private safety sector agencies. They establish local protocols for multi-agency response to life-threatening or public safety incidents. Tiered response agreement outlines capabilities, expectations, and limitations of each agency and defines criteria for participation. The intention of tiered response is to provide a clear response, time advantage on scene by one or other parties. It can look like, it can deal with certain things like life-threatening emergencies, cardiac arrest, unconsciousness, and that's kind of what we would be looking at for this agreement. Tiered response agreements are tailored to each region to address their unique needs. As the population continues to grow and increase and our age demographics change, it's important to leverage the fire station's strategic locations to provide quick medical response, particularly early CPR and defibrillation, as it plays a vital role in patient outcomes. Section 3.1 of the Establishing and Regulating Bylaw, 24-10-1658, allows for fire department's response to medical calls upon request of paramedics or OPP. We'd adjust that to make it an automatic agreement. So as we're not necessarily waiting for that call, it would be coming up immediately. So a little bit of analysis that we've gone through in the last year or so. For many years, the Whitewater Region Fire Department has responded to a variety of medical calls. They include lift assists, locked door rescues, MVCs, and other types of traumatic injuries. The adjustment here would just be to take a little bit more of a proactive approach to deal with the strictly medical side of things, primarily cardiac arrest. Fire departments in Renfrew County operate at different levels and different levels. So this would kind of be intended to take some of the onus off the paramedics for requesting and having it automatically done through dispatch. As communities' demographics change and the demand for medical services rise, there is an increasing need for timely intervention in life-threatening emergencies. This highlights the opportunity to leverage the resources of the fire department at strategically located stations to provide quick medical response and to support paramedics on scene. Fire departments across Ontario, regardless of size or structure, have been successfully assisting in medical calls since the early 90s or even earlier. This model is not a new initiative, rather it aligns with best practices seen in other jurisdictions. Our response time in Whitewater in 2023 and 2024 it was less than 7.5 minutes. That data is from fire calls. We stuck strictly to the fire calls because we have priority 2 calls that are non-emergency response, and the firefighters will take longer to arrive on scene. So this is just the closest data we would have that would mimic the response to an acute medical condition. To ensure operational readiness for all our personnel would be trained to the first responder level. This goes beyond basic first aid and CPR. It's a level of training equipment responders with comprehensive skills, including patient assessment, CPR, hemorrhage control, and management of both acute and chronic conditions. Training will include dynamic real-world scenarios, skill demonstrations, and media-based learning. First responder training is a well-established standard for many departments that regularly respond to medical emergencies. The role of fire personnel extends beyond early medical intervention. Firefighters can assist paramedics with a wide range of tasks, such as performing CPR or managing patient care, while allowing paramedics to focus on higher levels of intervention. So there's some of the steps that need to be taken to make this a success, and they would operate concurrently, but for clarity, they're numerically listed here. A tiered response agreement would have to be formed with the County of Renfrew Paramedic Service. I would look to be doing that in the third quarter of 2025. Instructor training has the intent to keep the costs as low as possible. We would train some of our experienced staff. They would take an instructor course to be able to provide the first responder training to the rest of our firefighters. We'd like to do this in Q3 or Q4 of this year. Equipment purchase, we'd need to upgrade some of our equipment, including making sure all apparatus that would be responding to these calls have things like oxygen, bag valve masks, and airway supports. Again, ideally in Q3 of 2025. And then next year, or very end of this year, training equipment purchased, including CPR dummies, airway adjuncts, etc. And then firefighter training would be done in-house by instructors certified in 2025, and this would hopefully take place in Q1 of 2026. SOG and policy creation, guidelines relating to maintenance training and equipment inspections at the end of this year or early next, and adjustment of running assignments with dispatch to make sure that we're sending the right apparatus and the right stations to these calls early 2026, and then amendments to the establishing and regulating bylaw in Q1 of 2026, with the hopes of beginning a response in Q2 of 2026, and then annual reviews thereafter. So there's a more detailed cost breakdown coming up, but for 2025, the expected impact would be $20,500, $34,000 in 2026, and then $14,000 thereafter. So some of the strategic plan department work plan pieces, it is part of the work plan for 2026 to bring this report to council for direction. It aligns with the objectives outlined in the strategic plan. This initiative will effectively elevate service levels by integrating additional capabilities into the existing response framework, ensuring a more effective and efficient response, and improving the community safety. So engagement took place with the County of Renfrew Paramedic Services, as well as the Office of the Fire Marshal, Senior Management Team, and then the Fire Department as a whole. So the financial implications for the budget of 2025, we'd be looking at instructor training for some of our experienced firefighters. We have firefighters that are currently paramedics or in the military working in the medical field, both as medics and physician's assistants. That cost would be $10,500, and then some medical equipment upgrades at $10,000. 2026 would be the largest impact to the budget. We need to be purchasing training aids, then the actual hours for all our firefighter training, some of which could be offset with existing hours, but there'll still be an impact of approximately $24,000 there. And then the call volume, although it's not, we don't have the data, the best guess is, like I said earlier, 20 to 25 calls per year, probably an annual wage increase of $6,000 strictly for emergency response. There'll be some consumable medical equipment annually, and that will start in 2026. O2 rental, whatever disposable equipment we use, bag valve masks, gloves, things like that. 2027, we'd be looking at training our new hires at 8,000, training aids, 2,000, call volume, again, we're going to stick with the 6,000 until we have better data. And then consumables, O2 rentals at 4,000. And that's pretty much going to be the way it plays out for the next couple of years. And then 2029, there'll be an instructor recertification, so there's another little increase. But to offset that increase, we'd probably not purchase any training aids that year to try to keep it at the 14,000. There'd be no impact to our insurance premiums as medical response is considered standard responsibility for fire departments. So the next steps involve collaborating with Renfrew County paramedics to draft a tiered response agreement, and then work with our own staff on training, and then the adjustments to operating guidelines and our establishing and regulating bylaw. So with that, I will turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you, Fire Chief. And I'll go to the mover first, Councillor Bell.
Yeah, so I just want to make a couple comments on the report there. I appreciate the report. I think it's pretty detailed. I think for what I was requesting initially, it's probably an expanded scope of that, but I know that was through some interaction with the paramedic service and kind of what they're requiring or what they're requesting for the responders that show up to these calls. When we look at the calls that we're looking to be dispatched to, I just want to confirm with you, Jonathan, but we are going to be focusing on cardiac arrest, and unconscious major bleeds. Those are the types of calls that this tiered response would be geared towards.
That's correct. And then the probably additional one, and it already exists in our establishing and regulating bylaws, if there is a paramedic delay for any reason.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, so I think the outline of this is great. It's what I was trying to, or it's kind of what my vision was whenever I put this forward. Just coming from my background as a paramedic, our community is pretty underserviced in that we only have, now this is going to change hopefully in the near future, but we have bases in Renfrew, Pembroke, and Eganville. And that creates a very large gap in our community for response time. So if you have somebody that goes unconscious or VSA out in Westmeath, sometimes you can be waiting 20, 25 minutes for an ambulance, and sometimes it's longer than that because with the way our responses are here in the county, sometimes you have ambulances coming from from Glasgow, which is in between Renfrew and Arnprior, depending on transfers and ambulances available. So it can go from a 20, 25 minute response time to sometimes up to 45 minutes to an hour. So to have trucks that we already have in our community being able to respond to these calls that can make a major difference when you talk about there's two major indicators in survival for somebody that that goes into cardiac arrest, and that's early CPR and early defib. And if people in our community can respond to those calls with the proper equipment and the proper training, I think that's a major benefit to our community. I think, not speaking for the rest of council, but I think there's maybe going to be a little bit of pushback on the financial side of it. But when you look at 68,000 over the first 3 years, it's 68,500, which represents less than 1% of our budget annually right now, or at least on as far as the tax levy is concerned. You know, that's spread out over 3 years. I think that's reasonable. If we can find ways to incorporate that budget incorporate those costs into the budget that already exists, I think that's good. But the financials behind this, to have, like I said, our community be better supported in these high priority calls, I think is a service I would like to push forward. And yet the other thing I'd like to maybe mention is, with this tiered response with the paramedics, and this is to the fire chief, if this were to go ahead and be pushed through, I'd like to see training opportunities explored with the paramedic service, try to get an ambulance or some of the paramedics to come out and collaborate with our fire department in potential training exercises, that type of thing. I think that could be a benefit for us as well. So those are kind of my comments on the report as it stands right now.
Good. You put a lot on the table there, so I'll give the fire chief do you want to make any response or comment?
I think the only thing I'll comment to is the training component. We have in the past had the paramedics come out and do some pretty informal but very valuable training with us as far as where things are located in their ambulance and how we can assist them on calls. We can certainly continue that and even expand it.
Excellent, thank you. I'll go to the seconder next. Councillor Tabbert.
I have to admit, when I first heard this motion coming forward, I was a little leery because, I mean, our firefighters, they're volunteers, and they may not have the time to add more onto their plate. But after speaking with the chief and with Mark, I'm in favor of this, even with the expenses that we have. Our firefighters are willing to help people in our community, and if they're willing to help our people, we should be willing to support them in some way. We're not calling them out to, you know, full-blown paramedics, just to help when necessary. If by chance we ever get a paramedic base in our area somewhere, you never know. It may cut down on our calls that our firefighters would be responding to, but we've all heard the stories about people who didn't have the necessary help at times because there was no paramedic or no firefighter out there to help them. And I think with our demographics changing and the rural community we live in, I think we can certainly help our firefighters if they want to help others in our community to lean that way. Thank you.
Excellent. And comments from other members of council. Councillor Trim.
Yes, I agree with everything that's been said. I just was hoping it wouldn't cost as much. Increased service is increased costs, is increased taxes. And I think this is a service that's needed. And maybe I was being a bit naive when I was hoping it wouldn't cost as much, but that's what it is, and I certainly will support it. Thank you.
Good. And Councillor Moore?
To start off with, I was very surprised that this came across our desk as being an approval for fire department's enhanced level of service. I thought it would be coming back as information and then moving on to the next budget. So this sort of took me off guard. And one of my main responses to that is, will our firefighters be trained enough to not be held responsible should there be a lawsuit? That is my concern. And I think maybe the CAO or someone should look into legalities of this to find out that everything is going according to legal ends so that we don't have to put one of our volunteers through a lawsuit, and or the supervisor at the time, and the fire chief, etc. And secondly, in what was announced in our package on Renfrew County News, Renfrew County Warden's letter, with a possible base coming up in Whitewater, if we start to do these responses, will this lessen the need for the base being located in Whitewater? That's a deep concern too. And my third concern is, I know how the dispatch system works. I was in it for a number of years. If they know that Whitewater is going to do medical calls, the ambulance won't get priority, but the fire department will. And I have a problem with that. And I think it's going to cause problems down the road, and hence possibly a lawsuit. There were my three concerns. Thank you.
Fire Chief, you want to give a first shot, or CAO? You guys can fight over it.
I think one of the ways that we can best protect ourselves against any type of lawsuit, whether it's related to a medical response or any other type of response, is to train to a recognized standard. We're not pursuing these medical calls based on, being trained to basic first aid and CPR. We're going above and beyond to the first responder training, and as long as our members stick to their training and stay within those confines, I don't see any type of a lawsuit issue. That's always a potential, but again, we train our staff and we direct our staff to follow their training and protocol. So I don't believe that that's going to be an issue. The second piece, I believe, is related to the ambulance base potentially being located in Whitewater. This is very much not a one or the other. We're not a solution to a shortage of paramedics or, paramedic response time or anything like that. We're just an augmentation. Sometimes it may be even, I'll say, a stopgap until their arrival. We don't do transport. We don't do the multitude of things that our paramedic service is trained and equipped and does on a daily basis. We're there very much as a support role for them. In conversations with Chief Nolan, there certainly was no indication that if we pursued this, that there'd be any likelihood that an ambulance base would be moved out of Whitewater or anything. Ambulance bases, no matter where they're located, are good for Renfrew County. They cover off areas as paramedics are pulled into calls or transfers, so any addition is beneficial. I don't think we'll have any impact on that. Our roles are very different. There's a slight overlap on these very acute cases, but we're very much a support role to them, not a replacement. Sorry, could I just get a reminder of what the final one was?
The final point that he brought up was the priority. Would dispatch start to call the firefighters out first?
There's actually, in recent years, I'm not sure what the time frame is, the paramedic service has put I believe it's a commander. If I'm wrong with the terminology, I apologize. But one of their command staff in dispatch to help with the tiering of these calls and to help the dispatcher determine what the appropriate resource would be. For these high acuity calls, they need paramedic services. We're there to perform a very specific set of tasks. Failing to send an ambulance to these calls or any other type of calls, I don't believe is going to be a concern. And with that commander in place, I think that'll help smooth out any potential issues. I think that's part of their role, is to make sure that the right resources are sent to the appropriate call, and it'll just be expanded a little bit if we go forward with this.
Councillor Moore, you're good? Good. Other members of council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So I'm struggling with this a little bit too. First and foremost is the cost. And I know that cost related, you kind of weigh that against someone having a cardiac arrest, and you kind of look at that and think, well, if it can save a life. My concern is we already have our firefighters who are CPR trained, who are first aid trained. When they come upon a scene of an accident on Highway 17, they're trained. They will do the best that they can do until paramedics or an ambulance arrives. And they're already doing that. So why are we putting ourselves out there to want to for what? For what is that purpose? I don't understand it. We already do it. We're already doing it. Or am I missing something here? That's where I'm going with this. I will not be in favor or supporting this motion. I'm sorry. That's just where I'm sitting with it. I know there's been a lot of work put into it, and if council agrees, then we move forward. But I think already we're already have a very, very highly educated who have put a lot of work, a lot of training into our firefighters, and I don't know why we would want to continue with this. We have a paramedics we have a lot of paramedics. There is no reason that we have to be doing this. We call them paramedics. When a paramedic is called, they're there. They're there. So anyway, that's where I'm going. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Good, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm just going to get the fire chief, sorry. Did you want to respond?
The training component, I will say, at some point in the future, we were going to be looking at increasing our level of medical training. Basic first aid and CPR has its role. It's very important. But what we respond to, particularly the MVCs, the things that happen on the highway, really do require a higher level of training than we're providing currently. Again, the paramedics are fantastic, but if there's multiple casualties or things like that, our staff still perform a lot of the basic medical support. So we were looking to increase the training on that level at some point in the future. And then the other component is just we at times are going to be available and be able to respond quickly. And if it's a cardiac arrest, that early CPR, early defib is key to survival. We're definitely not trying to replace or do anything like that with the paramedics, but there is an opportunity, I believe, for fire in medical response.
Good. CAO?
I could just respond maybe back to Councillor Moore's 2 points, one of which related to liability. We've confirmed with our current insurance provider that there'd be no additional premiums to provide this augmented level of service, as our fire chief has indicated. Does that increase our liability with respect to potential claims? I'm uncertain of that. I haven't engaged with my colleagues to see if there's lots of claims relating to these types of this type of service. The second point with respect to the present motion before council, so recognizing that it could have read that you receive the information for if you receive the report for information purposes and that it be presented as part of the 2026 budget. So in lieu of us not proceeding with the present motion, perhaps council would consider receiving the information and directing staff to bring it back for consideration as we look as part of our 2026 budget. It's difficult to sort of plan additional levels of service in the middle of a year. It's probably a little bit easier when you're looking at the fulsome budget of a year and subsequent years. So, I mean, at the discretion of council, the motion before you is there, and certainly through direction through the clerk, we could certainly look at changing that. But so liability uncertain, insurance there's full coverage with our current policy, no additional premiums, and it's worded in a positive, the motion. Yes, thanks.
Perfect. I'm going to, so Councillor Moore, if you can just hold any response that you have for the CAO. I'm going to come back to the Deputy Mayor. Do you have any additional comments with respect to the Chief's comments?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. There was just one thing I forgot to mention, and that is, if we go forward with this, do our firefighters, is it going to become mandatory? Because we may have some firefighters out there who didn't sign up for all of this, who really are just out to better the community, to do whatever they can. Is it becomes mandatory, will we lose some of our staff and all of our trained firefighters because of that? Thank you.
Can you comment, please, Fire Chief?
In conversations with staff, I would say most are in favor. Some voiced a level of apprehension, but not any desire not to. Our current policy, and one that is not intended to change, is we don't have a standby crew per se. So if a firefighter were to choose or not be available to respond to a call, there's no implications to that. There's no, it's just expected that not all of our staff can make all of our calls. The training would be required, but that goes for all of our training. We have firefighters that train to do interior attack and will, in all likelihood, never do interior attack. They meet the training standards, but we would approach the medical response the same. We'll train them, and if they're ever in a situation, God forbid, it could be in their personal life at home, with a loved one, just like our CPR and first aid training now. But as far as mandating staff to respond to certain calls or fear of losing staff, I don't think that's going to be a concern. I've heard no one say or even hint that they would be leaving the department or not wanting to participate, but those people could be out there. I suspect it's a small percentage, and they just wouldn't respond to these calls, and the rest of our staff would.
Deputy Mayor, anything else? No. Good. Okay, back to Councillor Moore. I'm just going to follow up because the CAO just mentioned. Did you have any questions about his option to change that resolution?
Yes, but I do believe the first and seconder have to change the option. I can recommend that we make.
Anybody in council can put an amendment on the floor.
Okay, I would like to recommend that we change the recommendation and bring it back for information and further study, because I'm sure there's probably more things that have to go into it, including budget for next year. Because by the time they get the training and everything done, it'll be into next year anyway. But this way they can get started in the fall with their extra training and see how it's going to work with the budget and start it perhaps even March or April of next year. And this is something you can't start right away, so I would like to see the amendment changed, or the recommendation changed.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're proposing an amendment to receive it for information and direct staff to provide it back to council as part of the 2026 budget deliberations.
Or sooner. So even the first meeting in September? Because we'll be starting budget in September anyway.
Yes, okay. Is that clear to staff?
Yeah, I guess what we could seek out as staff in the budget process is when we come to council for budget direction, like that first step, maybe this is an item listed there, and we try to project what that impact will be on the 2026 budget immediately in September, and council could provide direction at that point in time to include it in the budget, like include it, approve it, and then we would automatically commence the process of training and the like. But there is some work to do that doesn't involve some major costs, the agreement and all that. We can continue to pursue that and prepare ourselves to a final draft, if you will, in advance of any final approvals. But yeah, that could work.
Good, so it's changing the wording to receive and direct staff to bring back to council in September.
Yes.
Good. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trim. Excellent. Any discussion? And I'll start with Councillor Trim as a seconder.
Yes, and further to Deputy Mayor's comments, I would just like to know, now my certification has expired, but I knew how to do basic first aid, CPR, and I know how to use the defibrillators that are all over our township. What more are these people going to be able to, what further service beyond that are they going to be able to do? And I don't expect that to be explained now, Mr. Mayor, but for when we are deliberating it, I want to make sure, and I think I'm on board with the Deputy Mayor, I want to make sure that this money that we're going to have to spend, either we're going to raise new money or we're going to take it from another service, one or the other. And I want to make sure, as I said, I was a bit surprised at the cost, and I want to know clearly what we're getting for that, but I don't expect that explanation now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent, good. Any other comments from Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Being a numbers guy, to me, it's all about numbers, whether it's financial, timing, etc. And the one thing that catches my attention in this report is a phrase under the analysis. It's a one sentence. In 2023-2024, the average response time for fire departments to fires in Whitewater region was under 7 minutes 30 seconds. December 12, 2024, I waited approximately 37 minutes and 30 seconds for help of any kind to show up. Over half an hour, which is the difference between life and death. And I didn't care what training, if a firefighter would have showed up, they probably would have had the sense in an emergency to come and get the defibrillator, I think, which is back here somewhere. When you're undergoing an event as tragic and as out of hand and everybody's running around trying to figure things out, all you need is one guy to show up to understand the next thing to do. And with everybody losing their minds, not one of us thought of, hey, the defibrillator's just over here, or I think one down at the rink or wherever they are. All we need is one guy to kind of come and, versus a family trying to put out fires during an emergency. And to me, I would have paid anything to have somebody there within 7 minutes and 30 seconds. So on that basis, I'm going to fully support this resolution. I agree that I'd like to receive it for information first. The one thing I'm really concerned about is the impact to the potential paramedic center, or what, I don't know what the proper, what is it called? CACC service that could come to our region that we're in discussions with the county now for. So I'd like to understand if it's going to impact then I really want to understand that with reference to this resolution. Thank you.
Good. I just want to look, CAO, Fire Chief, you're tracking these questions, these outstanding questions?
Yeah, certainly, so that they can come back in September when the time is needed. Yeah,
excellent.
perfect.
Good.
Yeah.
Councillor Bell?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on what Councillor Olmsted said, that 7.5 minutes, and sorry, to follow up with the Deputy Mayor as well, just that 7.5 minute response time on these tiered responses, what you're getting out of it that we're not currently receiving. Yes, the fire department has their basic CPR first aid, but with the tiered response, it means that qualified members in the community are automatically being dispatched. So that 7.5 minute response time, if we can translate that into a medical response where somebody's in cardiac arrest just down the street and not even with the sense to go and get a community defibrillator that's in the town, but have one accessible in the truck or the vehicle that they're taking, that early CPR and that early defib, those are the number one, that's 1 and 2 indicators on survival of somebody that goes into cardiac arrest. And that those 20 to 25 calls that we may increase every year, you may not save a life in those 20 to 25 calls, but I grew up with an individual whose dad dropped on the threshold of his house, called 911. There happened to be a PRU in Cobden, so within 5 minutes they had somebody over there applying the defib pads, got a pulse back, got him back to Ottawa, and he survived. So as Councillor Olmsted said, he waited 35 minutes, and I can confirm that that's not abnormal for Renfrew County. We have a number of transfers that go down to Ottawa that take 2, 3, 4 trucks out of the county every night, some nights during the week, especially in the summer, and you're left with 7 trucks on a night. Sometimes there's 1 truck for the entire county sitting at Glasgow Station in between Renfrew and Arnprior, and if a call comes in for your family member that's dropped in your living room, sometimes that response time can take 45 minutes to an hour. And that's that stopgap that this this tiered response could deliver on. That 7.5 minutes is exactly right. It's all time in these scenarios. And yeah, when you look at $68,000, it's a significant amount of money. But again, it goes back to what's the cost of a community member, or what's the cost of your family member whenever they drop in your house. And I would say that's money well spent. You know, the extra level of training, as far as with the discussions that I've had with the chief, are something that the paramedic service is requesting to have in place to have us respond more regularly to these calls, so that the members that are responding are trained to a particular level that they see as being fit. Whether that could be adjusted or not, I don't know, but it's that 7.5 minute response time that's that stopgap for whenever ambulances, yes, whenever you call, they're coming, but sometimes it's not in that 7.5 minutes. Sometimes it's a half an hour, 45 minutes away, and that can mean all the difference in survival of one of our community members. So that's what I would say maybe to those comments.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Any other comments on the amended motion on the floor? No other comments? So I'm just gonna, I want to make sure that we're clear on it, because when I reread the resolution, the first one, authorizing the preparation of a tiered medical response agreement, there's no cost involved in that. To me, that information will be required in order to provide additional information in September. So I just want to make sure that Councillor Moore, Councillor Trimmer are clear. That one would stand as is to initiate that discussion. The agreement can't be confirmed until it comes back to council, but they need to go through that process in order to come back to us with something. Is that your understanding? Yeah, I'm getting it from both the mover and the seconder. Does that change anybody else's perspective on what you've heard so far? Okay, is there any other comments? Good. Okay, with that, we will call for a vote on the amendment to the motion. All those in favor? 4, 5, and those against? 1, 2. The amendment carries. Good. And you have it amended there already? Can you just provide the language to the first paragraph? For the new motion that is in front of us now that we have to vote on.
That the Council of Township Whitewater Region, nope, I don't have it ready, I'm sorry. Give me one moment.
Okay.
I could, if you'd like, I could try to read it through, if you will.
Yep.
So that the Council of Township of Whitewater Region receive the present report for information purposes, direct staff to return with this topic as part of the 2026 budget deliberations, and thirdly, authorize the preparation or communications for a tiered medical response agreement with the County of Renfrew. Would be the 3 items. Receive for information, direct staff to bring to the next budget deliberations, and thirdly, allow us to continue to discuss with the county.
Good? Clear? Clerk, you're good? Yeah. Is that clear for everyone? Is there any other discussions on this item? Yes, Councillor Tabbett. You would like a recorded vote? Good. The clerk can get that ready. Good. Is there any other comments or questions? Yeah, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, just as part of the discussion with county, would that include the CAC as well? The impact of?
Yeah, so I have noted a few points, one of which is the future ambulatory dispatch or location in our community. So that's one of the items, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Good. Just, I'm going to make I want to make sure everybody is done before I comment. So is there any other final comments or questions? Good. The only thing I would add is this is an opportunity to increase the working relationship between fire and ambulance in our community with the aim of providing the right person with the right training as early as possible. That's how I'm boiling it down to that simple thing in my head. I know the tiered response definitions aren't clear, and that what we're asking staff to go would define it, because I had some questions as to what that meant. What level of training is that? What is an automatic response? How does that work? That'll come as part of the later on discussions, so I think I can defer that question. And the last concern for me personally is just the funding, and I've talked to this ad nauseum about an increase to a level of service is an increase in taxation, and I would only support this going forward through internal reallocation of funds. We find a way to fund this without increasing taxation, and we can. We have a responsibility to prioritize the services that we provide, and obviously, depending on council, you're that part of that discussion would prioritize it, but that would be my position on the funding for this item. Fair? Good, and I'll open it. Is there any comments? Yeah, Councillor Tabbert.
So going on the statement that there be no extra funding, it all be reallocated, will this go forward in every other budget too, that no extra funding would be provided in future budgets, like what's being asked now, that no future funding be anything except for what's external, so their budget will never be increased? Will that apply to every other department as well, so that we won't have increases for some departments and not for one that's very important to our community?
No, I'm just giving you my position on it. Council would still decide how to fund it in the end. I'm sharing with council my perspective on it. For this increase in level of service, my first option would be to seek the reallocation of funds internally. But as through the budget process, increases would be determined by council based on what our priorities are, infrastructure, asset management plan, those kinds of things. Does that help shape it? Okay. We can talk afterwards, yeah. Good. Any other final comments? Okay, clerk, if we can do the recorded vote, please.
Okay, so the mover will go first. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, you have to do it orally, yeah.
4.
Councillor Tabbert?
Against.
Sorry, do it again, yeah, please. Thanks.
Against.
Councillor Olmsted?
4.
Councillor Moore?
4.
Councillor Trim?
4.
Deputy Mayor?
Against.
Sorry, and Mayor?
4.
4. So 5, 4, 2 against. It's carried.
Thank you for that discussion, council. That was excellent. I really appreciate how everybody contributed. Fire Chief, thank you for that report. Excellent. Yes,
Mayor,
please.
I just have to be excused,
Yeah.
please.
Thanks, Councillor Tabbert, and we'll connect afterwards on the on your other question. Okay, good. What I'd like to do is propose to council, we've got a member sitting in the audience that's here for a specific item. What I was hoping is that maybe I could have a motion from the floor to amend our procedural bylaw, to amend the agenda to move item 9.10 to our next discussion item, so that the member in the audience can hear it and then choose to leave if he wishes. Is there a motion from the, yes, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And that, I don't clerk the language you need on that motion?
Just to, I can't think of the word. You know what?
Amend?
Do we want to amend it? There's a word for it. Okay. So yeah, let's just amend the agenda.
Okay.
Our procedural bylaw.
Procedural
to amend
bylaw?
this, thank you. Yes, to amend the.
To move it forward, and I need 2/3? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. 2/3 vote, please.
Okay, good. And do I have to allow discussion?
I did believe it's not debatable.
Okay, not debatable, so we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. We're going to move item 9.10 to immediately follow 9.6. The fire chief, he has to go and respond to a fire. 9.10, site plan control approval for part lot 11. The recommendation is that Council of Township Whitewater Region enact a bylaw to authorize the township to enter into a site plan agreement with Northwest Performance Cobden Incorporated and to permit the redevelopment of 244 Sturgeon Mountain Road. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Trim, seconded by Councillor Moore. CAO.
Yeah, thanks so much. So in the absence of our planner, economic development officer, I'll go ahead and present the report. And our contract employee has now left, Alex Pisklavich, and he prepared the report. So just for clarity, and I've reviewed it and we'll present it today. So just if I could, through you, the mayor, the motion has the address of 244 Sturgeon Mountain Road. The address of the property is in fact 224 Sturgeon Mountain Road. So I'm not sure if you wish to, at the present moment, request a friendly amendment prior to proceed.
My mover, Councillor Trim, you're fine. Councillor Moore, seconder? Yeah, okay, friendly amendment, thank you.
Thanks so much. So on May 2nd, 2025, Jody Langton, on behalf of Northwest Performance Cobden Incorporated, filed a site plan control application. This is for the property at 224 Sturgeon Mountain Road. Council will recall that there was a significant fire at this property in the early parts of January, which ultimately burnt down what was a barn-like structure that was converted to sort of a contractor's yard or agricultural commercial establishment. Presently on the site, what is operational is what we call in the zoning bylaw an agriculture commercial establishment, as well as a truck terminal. So you'll notice that there's significant sort of trucks on the property as well. So the present application follows the loss of the former building of 2,128 square feet, and the proposal is to reconstruct a building that is slightly larger at 3,543 square feet. Together with the redevelopment and the erection of a new storage shop building is the establishment of customer parking, truck and trailer parking spaces, recognize the evolution of the property over the last 15 years, containing 6 silos and bins today, grain dryer, generator, shed, scale house, and truck scale. And in our crowd, we have Mel Langton with us. I believe my first week here, I met with Mel in 2019, specifically about this property. Not 15 years ago, 6 years ago, but so it's interesting evolution. So the site plan, it's attached as attachment 1, but it's quite detailed, and it provides an update as to how the property is developed. Entrances on Zion Line, entrances on Sturgeon Mountain Road, bin locations, the scale, how the vehicle sort of will maneuver through the property. So just a quick review of the policies. So the provincial policy does allow for in our rural areas, commercial and industrial type development and agricultural type development as well. So in this present case, the property, we could define the agriculture commercial establishment as a farm-related commercial use, which is a permitted use under the PPS. Secondly, the county official plan designates the property as agriculture land use designation. And again, similar to the PPS, it allows for industrial and commercial type uses. So the present application will conform both to the official plan and the PPS. Presently, the property is in an agricultural exception 73 zone rather, in our new comprehensive zoning bylaw, and that exception zone was applied for in 2022 and approved for the sole purposes of adding these additional uses: agricultural commercial establishment, a contractor's yard, and a truck terminal. So back in 2022, when the property was evolving, essentially Mr. Langton applied for the zoning amendment and was successful in achieving that. So what we're seeing is ultimately the continued growth of the property to what it is today. Ultimately, staff are supportive of the application. The one thing I will highlight is the discussion that we had with the owner with respect to fire suppression requirements. So this is something that council will be familiar with in the recent couple years when we've seen development in our industrial park or similar commercial development in the rural areas. So during our preliminary submission, the owner was considering constructing a much larger building. So while the proposed building now is 3,500 square feet, the original discussions was for a building of 12,000 square feet, which is quite larger. So at that time, it was determined that fire suppression requirements would be required to comply with the Ontario Building Code. Fire suppression requirements is on-site water supply in order to ensure that there's immediate access to a sufficient amount of water to support evacuation, search and rescue operations during a fire. So the means is not to try to extinguish the fire, it's to provide the capacity for the fire department to quickly access the building and conduct a search and rescue to ensure evacuation. So, so at that point in time, there was some substantial costs in order to implement such fire suppression requirements. And as a result of the reduced scope of the development and approval, which is an increase of only 1,400 square feet on the previous building, we've determined that that fire suppression would not be required at this time. Any future development of the property would necessitate or would be evaluated to determine applicability of the fire suppression requirements. So aside from that, we've circulated the application to internal external agencies. We've received no objection to the application. Staff are supportive of the application, and the next step would be to sign the site plan agreement by the mayor and clerk and register it against the property, and at that point, we'd be able to issue the full building permit. Presently, they have a conditional building permit. If you've passed by the property, you see some construction occurring under a conditional building permit, and we'd issue the full building permit at that point in time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, CAO and Acting Planner. I'm going to go to our mover first, Councillor Trim.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to fully support this. I'm very pleased that the applicant is going to go ahead with replacing and extending the building a little more. Really, the CAO has explained it very well, but so I would just like to add something that really I think that's important for our community. One of the things that we know, and it's a bit lacking in our farming community, is that the farmers here produce things and send it away, where value is added in other places. And this is an example. I don't know how many people know this, but I want to say it publicly. This is an example of the only place in Renfrew County where soybeans are roasted. So there's value added there, and those beans then can be fed to dairy cattle. So we need more of this. We have wonderful agriculture and wonderful production, but we need to have more examples of this where value is added to the produce. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent point. Good. Councillor Moore?
No questions, thank you.
Good. Any other members of council? Good. I'll just note that the CEO and I got out for a tour of the facility, met Jody and Amy. Great initiative to see this development. They're talking about engaging with three-phase Hydro One connection. They're talking about potential access to natural gas. Really an opportunity for agricultural economic development. And like Councillor Trim said, adding value to product that we're already producing here. So, very good. And no final comments? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Excellent. Back in our order, 9.7. Sewer use bylaw. The recommendation is the Council Township Whitewater Region approve a sewer use bylaw to regulate the control of waste discharges to municipal sewers and sewage works. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if Council can remember, back on December 4th, staff presented an updated sewer use bylaw for consideration. And the draft bylaw was posted for public comment between January and April of 2025. And as part of this request for comments on the draft bylaw, we did distribute letters to all business properties that were within the village of Cobden, and to inform the businesses of the proposed bylaw and to request their feedback on during the public comment. So during that public comment period, we received 3 pieces of feedback from system users, 2 being commercial businesses and 1 being a recreational facility operator. So the first item that we received from the recreational facility operator just requested that the water and wastewater rates be reconsidered. This comment was actually forwarded on to the clerk and the treasurer as part of consideration for the water and wastewater rate study, because that fell under that project a little more neatly. And we also received comments from 2 commercial businesses. The first comment we received was from a business owner on Main Street here in Cobden with respect to roof drains and their sump pumps. And their concerns were that they are currently tied into the sanitary sewer system. And the business owner was concerned that their property, from the respect of the roof drains, that their property have very little permeable surface to allow for the infiltration, and that the basin drain is located several meters away, and that is connected to the storm sewer that is on Main Street that services the county, the road. They were also concerned over the costs that would be borne by them to connect their sump and roof leaders to the storm sewer if it became available to them. The second, so that was the one comment we received from the first business. The second business provided comments that the limits that are provided for in the proposed bylaw are set at appropriate levels for residential levels, but they have stated that they are unachievable for their commercial business. They also made comment that the bylaw notes that dilution is prohibited, and they commented that this needs a more narrow definition. Next, they made comments about the penalties outlined in the bylaw, that they would be excessive in their mind, and that they should be broken out with more criteria for the different breaches. Next, they made a comment about the timeline of the proposed bylaw, and they stated that if it was implemented in the short term, it would be concerning with respect to the penalties that were outlined. Next, they made comment about that they asked basically that separate levels be set in the bylaw for businesses versus residential users, and that they, if that wasn't the case, that they could also enter into a separate agreement on a case-by-case basis with the township that would allow their operations to continue in town. And their last comment was that they requested that a phased approach that this bylaw is rolled out in a phased approach, and that will allow them time to do some due diligence and implement any new processes that they need to be able to meet the limits set in the bylaw. So based on the comments that we received, there's an updated version of the bylaw has been attached to my report, and the changes that have been noted since the December 4th presentation are shown in red line text in the bylaw. But mainly the 3 changes that were proposed by staff after discussions are that some changes were made to section 18.0 and 18.2, and those were made to clarify the requirements of when existing stormwater collection infrastructure becomes available and when it is not available, and if it becomes available in the future, when the requirements of the bylaw would become relevant to each individual property. Pardon me. The next change to section 18.2 was an update where we changed the disconnection deadline for downspouts to the from downspouts to the sanitary sewer or storm sewer. To the sanitary sewer from September 1st, and we moved it forward a month to October 1st. And in relation to that, so staff have recommended that this bylaw actually come into force and take effect on October 1st, 2025. And this delayed implementation will allow staff time to develop promotion and education materials to let users know sort of the reasons why the changes have been made to the bylaw and what sort of things would be expected for them to come into compliance. And it provides for system users a period of time to voluntarily comply with the provisions before any fines are introduced. So just a quick note that as we're all aware, we had the Water Wastewater Task Force brought forward a number of recommendations in 2024, and the implementation of this bylaw touches on a number of items, including number 2.7 or recommendation 2.7. Recommended that there was the removal of roof leaders and sump pumps from sanitary connections. They also recommended that wastewater effluent quality limits be placed to ensure continued and uninterrupted operation of the wastewater treatment plant. They recommended the implementation of fines, and they also recommended investigating and testing effluent from commercial properties to determine if there's negative impacts to the plant, and also to communicate ownership obligations. So just a quick note on the financial implications. Mainly, the implementation of this bylaw will have a positive effect. Will result in cost benefits to system users. For example, the removal of sump pumps and roof leaders from the sanitary collection system will reduce flow volumes to the wastewater treatment plant. And the reduction of such flows to the plant can reduce chemical costs, electricity costs, all those extra additional bits of wear and tear on the plant that are associated with treating water that doesn't need to go there. It will also, the limits that could be set in the bylaw will also help to protect the system from damage. So for instance, placing limits on the discharge of things such as oil and grease will help to ensure that and the installation of oil and water separators will help to reduce repair costs associated with clogged pipes and damage. So some next steps, staff plan to develop some promotion and education problems over the summer to advertise the new sewer use bylaw requirements, and mainly the first one would probably be to target the disconnection of roof leaders, as that's sort of one of the easiest ones to check off the list. The bylaw will also be sent to the province for the addition of short form wording and review of the listed fines. And lastly, after a voluntary compliance period, staff are recommending the development of a program to investigate and confirm compliance with the new bylaw, and such programs could include analytical testing of wastewater and flow monitoring to identify continued stormwater inflow. And as I would recommend that, as we saw this past spring, the inflow volumes from roof leader inflow is a large portion of the flows that we experience at the plant during the spring months, and the disconnection of roof leaders could greatly help to lower those amounts. And that's everything. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, mover.
Thank you for this report. I guess it's a long time in coming, and this is something that we did discuss at our committee group that we had.
Water Wastewater Task Force?
Yeah, Task Force, sorry. I know we will not probably be popular with some people about the future added expense, about re-diverting their water. But I'm in favor, and I know we'll all be getting phone calls, I'm sure, but it's only the places in Cobden that are attached to the sewage system that this affects, so it's a small group, but unfortunately it's at their cost and not ours. So it'll be a learning curve for a while, and that's where the education comes in, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you.
Perfect. And a seconder, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, thank you. Agree with Councillor Moore. That I think at this stage, it's all about education and educating people about the alternatives. So I think this is what's needed as the first step. So let's see how it goes.
Perfect. Any other comments from council? Good. I just had two. County Road and any amendments made to the county road. How do we ensure that we have first kind of right to access the storm sewer if the road's torn up or the sidewalks are torn up? What processes are in place for that? Okay, Manager of Public Works.
Yes, I don't believe the county road has any moratorium over like when to dig on a road, a new road. To note, the next time Main Street will be rehab is, I believe, is 2031, and we will work with the county to determine, like, the big thing is if the capacity of the storm sewer, so it has capacity of all the roof leaders, and we will work with the county to determine that. The one next up too, we'll be providing that was in the water and wastewater rate study is a master servicing plan, so that will determine what is the capacity of storm sewers, including the county, because we do connect our local streets to the county roads, so that will be involved.
Awesome. So there is a process. I'm good. The second one is just community improvement plan. Has there been any consideration about using the SIP as a way to help implement some of these proposals?
I look at my peers, I would say the answer is no. I think we will likely be looking at amendments to our community improvement plan as a result of the county implementing new programs that we do not currently have and will be required to have to get funding from the county. So perhaps we add that to the list of consideration if it is eligible under the Municipal Act. Noted. Thanks.
Good. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. I'm hitting the wall. So I'm going to ask for a short recess, and then we'll come back and start again in about 5 minutes. Welcome back to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, May 21st. We're going to call ourselves back to order here at 6:07 p.m. And we are on to item 9.8, which is an always stop analysis on a number of streets. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region receive this report for information purposes as it relates to an update for always stop requests at the intersections of Crawford Street, Jason Street, and Morris Street, Elliott Street. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Bell. Manager of Public Works, please.
Yes, I'll try not to be too technical. The Ontario Traffic Manual is a guiding document. There are multiple books ranging from signs to pavement markings. There's a whole series of books and guidance documents for the province of Ontario. Book 5, which relates to the utility signs, which are like stop signs and yield signs, for example, also states that all always traffic stops must not be used as a speed control device or a traffic calming tool. In order for a always stop to be warranted, that the Ontario Book 5 states that you have to satisfy 3 general warrants, which are traffic history, traffic and pedestrian volumes, and sight lines. The minimum volume warrant, which considers it as vehicle traffic and also pedestrian traffic, is the total volume, which doesn't exceed 200 vehicles per hour. Combined traffic of vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic in a minor street doesn't exceed 75 units per hour, and the volume split does not exceed 70-30 split for a 4-leg intersection, or for a 3-leg intersection a 75-25 split, and also the last other warrant, the second last warrant is collision warrant, that over a 36 months period that is not more than 9 total collisions. Then also the last warrant is visual warrant, so for sight lines. Public Works staff conducted traffic movement counts for the intersection of Crawford and Jason Street on September 19th, 2024, and Moore Street and Elliott intersection on October 9th. So these warrants actually have a staff member tallying each movement. So if a vehicle goes straight on one, like say eastbound, they mark a 1, and if it goes left or right, they mark 1. So it's a whole intersection count, and then they also include the count for people walking. If you can scroll, clerk, sorry, if you can scroll to page 3 of the report. These tables show the warrants, and both intersections didn't meet the warrant. And the interior the Book 5 states that either warrant A, which is a collision, or that warrant B1, B2, and B3 for all the traffic volumes have to be achieved, and there's no visual at these intersections. So based on these results, the technical warrant is not. We're not satisfied. Thank the County of Renfrew for letting us their tally machine that does the traffic movement counts, and they actually did download the data and provided it to us. Staff did do the analysis internally, and with the next steps, as we stated that stop signs, always stops are not to be used as traffic calming. The upcoming traffic transportation plan that's being done alongside with the County of Renfrew, there's policy related to traffic calming, pedestrian crossovers, and always stop control. So which, for example, this in the future, there's a form that's going to be filled out, and it'll be warranted if we got to do it or not. Just to note, to actually do one of these studies per intersection, it takes approximately about 15 hours of staff time to be done to to actually count them and then do the analysis. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And mover, Councillor Moore, you're up first.
Okay, thank you for this, and I'm going to your last statement, saying this is a living document. So this will stay forever and ever. Should this come up in the future years, we'll have this as a baseline, this information? Does it stay for
It does change.
3, 5, 7 years?
For
future?
Yeah, so the upcoming policy, the draft policy that has gone through with the traffic plan, it states that once it's done, it lasts for 1 year. So in the request, they can request in the following year. Traffic volumes do change over time, so it could be revisited in the future.
Okay. One other thing, I wasn't too interested in putting in a three-way stop at Morris and Elliott due to the incline and the weather conditions in the wintertime. I think we could actually be causing more accidents than what we're alleviating. And the reason some of these were requested was, I think, as a traffic calming measure, meaning speed. And according to this, we can't do it, so we'll have to look at possibly other measures if there's other complaints about how to control speeds, whether it be signage, etc., or OPP presence, and maybe move on from there. But I don't recommend well, I guess we're not going to do the three-way stops at this time. Thank you.
And our seconder, Councillor Bell. No comments. Any other comments or questions from other members of council? I have two. I just want to make sure we get back. One was a formal petition. So as long as we have a mechanism to go back and inform community members who made the initial application. And I noticed that you have the traffic calming as part of the transportation master plan. That's excellent. We'll wait to discuss that when that comes. So, no other questions? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 9.9, Grant Settlement Road, reallocation of funds. The recommendations of the Council of Township Whitewater Region direct staff to reallocate funds budgeted for the reconstruction of Grant Settlement Road project to rehabilitate Mineview Road, and 2, repair rutted sections of Grant Settlement Road. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim, and this is back to Manager of Public Works.
Yes, and this report is in regret that we're actually doing this. But on May 7th, Council did award tender 2025-06 surface treatment for Grant Settlement Road to Greenwood Paving in the amount of $638,000 with a total project cost of $860,000. Following the council meeting, a leadership staff in the Public Works Department tendered their resignation, which will impact the department's ability to complete this major project. This project, Grant Settlement, was be widening, so from basically from 7 meters to approximately 10. From 6.5. From between 6 and 7 meters wide to 9 meters wide. So a lot of resources in this project. With the resignation of the staff member, staff felt that with a lot of turnover of staff and with the transition period between the staff members, that we would potentially propose switching the project to Mineview Road. I met with all the Public Works staff last week to discuss the proposed change, and they're all unanimous for me proposing this to council. So the proposed project would be switched from Grant Settlement Road to Mineview Road. It's the entire stretch from Magnesium to Forster Falls in total lengths of 8.9 kilometers. The current condition of Mineview is very poor. It's very poor to poor, with a pavement index anywhere from 32 and also 48 out of 100. The worst stretch is the first section from Magnesium Road. which is a PCI index of 32. The proposed project would be to remove the surface, to change all the culverts that are required or damaged and in poor condition, minor ditching, and then install new road base, and then installation of the double surface treatment with fog seal. I did talk with the successful contractor to do a change order, and they were fine changing projects. Also, in the recommendation would be to repair any rutting along Grand Settlement Road. There's approximately 650 single lane kilometers that are rutted and for safety hazard. It's approximately about 20,000 that would go towards that project. By doing that, it would increase the overall PCI index of the road, which could delay the project and also extend the useful life. Grand Settlement has it ranges sections are anywhere from 30 to 56. So a lot of the section is good, but it has a poor rating in some areas due to the rutting. The total project cost for to do Mineview Road would be $830,000, and an additional $20,000 for Grand Settlement Road, which would actually come on a budget of $850,000 budget that was going towards Grand Settlement. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Moore, comments? Questions?
I'm in favor of this. I know with the changes coming up this summer, our workload's already pretty heavy, and I agree with the change. Thank you.
Good. And seconder, Councillor Trim?
Yes, I'm very much in favor of this. I think it's very important with reduced staff that the remaining staff we have experience success. And if this is how they're going to do it, I'm very much in favor. In preparation for this meeting, I drove the Grand Settlement Road section, and yes, with the rutting eliminated, that's going to make a big improvement on that road, and I think that the traveling public there would be satisfied that in the interim. But yes, it's to me it's very important that staff are able to carry out the projects this summer successfully, even though there's going to be a disruption with staff. And so, yes, and of course, they had lots of roads to choose from. Mineview is one, but there was others, and so it's not as if we're doing something we don't need to do. That isn't the case at all. And so, yes, very, very supportive and happy that the Public Works Department has this built-in flexibility. And so when challenges arise, they can meet them. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
All in support of National Public Servant Week, or Public Works Week. Good. Any other comments from members of council? Yes, Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Seeing as this is the road that our township garage is on, would it be worth considering doing the first, 50 or 75 meters to the township garage, doing that in, I think is it called HL4?
Yeah.
Paving? Is seeing that's, I don't know how many trucks would come and go just in and out of our garage on a daily basis, but I would think that the number would be significantly high. And I think by doing the double surface treatment, I'm worried about that portion of the road becoming like Zion Line very quickly, and that it deteriorated extremely fast. And I don't think it would make that much difference in the budget of doing from County Road 8 up to the entrance to the township garage. It's got to be less than 100 meters, I would think. Yeah, I noted that is a good
Observation. No, typically our trucks are not loaded coming back. There is a chance we do come back. The major part is when we're doing snow removal, and then that's the winter time, so it's not harsh on the road. And then we also follow the spring load restrictions. That's the major impact on our roads. But noted that that is a good suggestion, and it would not increase the overall budget by a large amount.
Right. And just as a further thought, I know that whenever we're loading winter sand and stuff, and there's a number of transports in and out of there a lot during that period of time. So if it's not going to significantly increase the budget, I think it's something we should really consider. Thank you.
Would you like to put an amendment on the floor? Is that necessary, CAO?
If I could suggest an amendment entirely through the mayor to the member of council, perhaps the amendment would read such that you know, the motion as it reads now, and maybe a third one that HL4, or how would you call that, Lane? The HL, that asphalt be applied for the 100 meters if it can be completed within the approved budget amount. And that would give us the discretion to implement if it's within the $850,000.
Yeah, I'd be completely fine with that. Thinking that obviously that amount is not going to be double surface treated, so we're saving some there. So
yeah,
for a slight increase in the cost for asphalt, that's where my head is at. But I'd be fine with that wording.
Perfect. So
if you want to restate it.
Moved by Councillor Olmsted. Is there a seconder? Councillor Moore. Is there any discussion on the amendment? I see none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous amended motion. Good. So we have an amended motion on the floor. Is there any discussion, any other discussion on this? Yes, Councillor Moore.
Just wondering, when you say 100 meters in, will that take in both entrances or just the first one?
Yeah, we would do it right until the entire entrance, so both entrances.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, I'm in full support of this. My view's been very bad for a number of years, and having Haley Industries at the end of that road, I think it's important. There's a ton of traffic that runs up my view every day, so I think that's a great road to consider. The other thing I'd just like to put forward, I think that the widening of Grand Settlement is also important to the resurfacing of that with the businesses that exist there and the amount of the increased pedestrian and cycling traffic that happens along that road. I think to consider not widening that road moving forward, I think would be a mistake. So whenever that comes back to council, I think the widening of that road should definitely be included. So I'm in full support of that.
Good. Noted by staff. Excellent. Any other comments, discussions on the amended motion? Good. I see none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Good. We're on to, we've done 9.10, so we're going to skip to 9.11, which is the Shared Services Agreement for Corporate Communications. The recommendations of the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve entering into a Shared Services Agreement with the Corporation of the Town of Renfrew for 1 year to support corporate communications. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Moore. And CAO.
Yeah, thanks so much. So what we have before council is a proposal to enter into an agreement with the town of Renfrew for the purposes of corporate communications. So this motion is one part of our communication strategy to backfill the current leave of absence of our communications economic development coordinator, Rebecca Gill. So as presented in the report, the background speaks to the scope of work. We deal with our social media platforms, our council summaries, the digital and hard copy newsletter, the current, our quarterly administrative report analytics, news releases, to name a few. infographics that come from other managers like Recreation and the like as well. So after we've reviewed several alternatives, it was determined that the best path forward would be to secure services from various sources. That would be internally and externally. So internally, the township will utilize existing employees. Debbie ready to name one, to coordinate the internal requests from department heads and other staff, and to manage communications with external supports. So together with Debbie, we have some students, we have other key staff that could also support Debbie as well. But ultimately, Debbie would coordinate the communication strategy. So external supports, one of which would be the town of Renfrew, so it shows a partnership with one of our neighbors. They have on staff a full-time communications and engagement coordinator, and they could allot up to 7 hours a week for the township of Whitewater region. They would ultimately bring a similar report to their council in early June, I think it's June 3rd, for their approval, but they've received some preliminary acceptance of the idea. Otherwise, we'd be looking at getting other private services. So we do have a couple of companies that we use, one for posters mainly, and others that we're exploring still. But we're certain that while there will be some impacts, we'll be able to generally respond to the corporate communication needs or level of service we've been provided with Rebecca. So staff are supportive of this. The operational or the financial impacts are such that we will ultimately be cost neutral, or there will be some operational savings. So there won't be any increased cost in the 2025 approved budget. We might see savings, but the savings will come at a cost of reduced levels of service or communication to the public. But in my view, I'm accepting of that for the interim period of 1 year. So to council to approve the execution of the agreement, everything is likely to be in place in sort of early to mid-June to continue rolling with our corporate communication strategy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, CAO. Deputy Mayor is the mover.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of this. My only question is, I know it's 7 hours a week. This individual will only be working out of the town of Renfrew. There will be no need for her or him to travel here. It will all be done virtually. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah. So the strategy, they'll be working solely in their offices. What we're going to do is split up the scope of work. So for the 7 hours, we'll seek to get a couple things, and then privately, we'll get a couple other things. So we'll split up the workload, and yeah, so it'll be out of their office. Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Moore, seconder.
I'm in favor. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Bell?
Yeah, sorry, just one quick question. For any urgent matters that need to get posted online, i.e. flooding with support, places of support, or any major closures, anything major that needs to go to the community, is there, with that internal component of that, they're able to distribute any of those urgent pieces of information kind of immediately or within a short time frame?
So yes, the answer is yes. Ultimately, the templates of some of these notices are readily available, just modifying some information on it. We have, in my conversation with our manager of Public Works, most of these immediate information distribution is from Public Works. So I've tasked the manager to also get logins to our Facebook account and the like to be able to support that. So we'll have some duplication to access those services. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Excellent. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item, 9.12, which is the AMO Conference Ministry Delegations. The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region receive this report for information purposes as it relates to the delegation request of the 2025 Associations of Municipalities of Ontario Conference to be held August 17th to 20th, 2025. Mover and a seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Olmsted. I caught one. And Councillor Moore. Thank you. CAO.
Yeah, thanks so much, and I'll thank Clerk Miller as well, who's put together the draft report with respect to this. So we have the AMO conference coming up in August. And what we have before council is sort of a list of preliminary ministries with whom I consulted with the mayor on, which we would like to submit delegations for. I've sort of set out a theme, building a strong future. Not sure if you like it, we could change it, but we'll see how it plays out in the next couple months. So the first one would be with respect to community growth. So actively engaging to identify support for mining, mineral, and surface rights with respect to the former Taminco site. So it's seeking to conduct or get funding to conduct preliminary and feasibility assessments of the undeveloped magnesium dolomite lands. Secondly, financial contributions to ensure comprehensive evaluation of the site's potential utilization. And then separately from the mining, determining the non-mineral lands for acquisition to support a future industrial park. So that would support growth in our community quite substantially if we're able to secure even one of those two things. So listed there, Ministry of Energy and Mines, secondly, Ministry of Natural Resources, and then Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. So we've engaged with ministry staff from those three departments. So they are familiar with our initiative. It's just a matter of getting this in front of the ministry, the minister's staff or parliamentary assistants. So we're looking to do that one. Secondly is business retention. So to actively support businesses in achieving their development proposals. One item that we've been trying to navigate is the regulatory framework, mostly with respect to endangered species. And then secondly, providing clear guidance and offering technical assistance to help businesses meet necessary criteria. So a lot of these requirements are stemming from the province, some of which you'll notice in our correspondence. The current government is looking to change a bunch of acts, but we'll get to that shortly. But just trying to better navigate and support our businesses in achieving success. So Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and Ministry of Red Tape Reduction. Red tape reduction would be a first, I think, for us. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out. Thirdly, supporting affordability. So this affordability matter on water, wastewater. They're looking for us to build more homes, but we need more funds to support our infrastructure. So Ministry of Infrastructure again, as we've done for the last number of years, and then with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, primarily to talk about assistance and expertise around to support municipalities with the complexities of development proposals. So some of the things we're faced with, for example, our wastewater treatment plant, while we have some technical staff on hand, the province has experts in the field of wastewater treatment and experts in many different fields. So we should be able to lean on them to be able to get more support to review our reports, review the studies being prepared by our developers. So there's a total of 7 there. Lots of work ahead of us to get this submitted, and then lots of work for members of council to prepare. So at your discretion, we'll submit this unless you want to change the list. Thanks so much.
Excellent thing. Thank you so much, CAO. It's just incredible to see us be able to articulate our problems so clearly. We've got no shortage of problems. Good. Is there any comments, questions from members of council? Yeah, Councillor Olmsted.
I would just like to note that these aren't problems, they're opportunities. Also, is it appropriate now to identify who's going? Do we know who's attending AMO at this point? Is that appropriate or not?
Do you have
I'm
good?
If we could, just for the sake that we're going to submit these in the next week, we have some people registered, which the clerk would know. If anybody's hasn't confirmed registration, if you could just let the clerk know so that we could list your name in our delegation request.
Great. Thank you.
Just a quick show of hands. Who's planning to go?
I believe I'm registered.
Yeah, okay. So 2. And Councillor Tabbert? Yeah, okay.
And the mayor? I didn't see a hand.
So 4 of us for sure. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Good. No, I don't have anything to add. I think it was articulated very well. And I have been promising back to council we owe you back a briefing note on the mine situation. to articulate some of the details behind these recommendations. It hasn't been produced yet, but it will come very shortly before the summertime. Okay. Good. If there's nothing else, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. And that's perfect. The delegation requests are due May 30th, so the CAO's on the run here trying to keep up with it all. Good. Next is notice of motions. We have a notice of motion on the floor, which we'll hear first, and then we'll see if there's any others. And I will hand the floor over to Councillor Moore. He has a motion that, if you're prepared to read it, we'd love to hear it.
Okay. Notice of motion, Beachburg Water Mains. Recommendation. Whereas Beachburg Water System has experienced multiple recurring faults in its water main system over a period of time, and whereas these failures have caused disruption to residents and businesses, raising concerns about infrastructure reliability and long-term costs, therefore be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region directs staff to initiate a comprehensive investigation into the cause of the recurring water main faults in Beachburg, and that the investigation include an assessment of the current infrastructure, potential environmental and usage-related factors, historical maintenance and repair records, and any systematic issues contributing to the failures, and that staff report back to Council with findings and recommendations including potential short and long-term solutions, budget implications, and possible funding sources.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trim. Good. It's on the floor. Councillor Moore, is there any comments you want to make on your motion?
No, just that after 6 main breaks in the same area, I think we really have to give this a good look to see what's happening, because it's the users that are paying for it. It's not the taxpayers, and every time they come and fix this, it's between $10,000 and $15,000 or more. Plus, we're out of water 8 to 12 hours every time. So there's got to be a reason for it. So if we can find that out, that's half the battle. But whatever happens from this, it'll be interesting to see. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Trim.
Yes, I certainly agree with this, and I don't want to change the motion, but I think the intent of it is in the first recommendation that the Beachburg Water System has experienced multiple recurring faults in its water main system over a relatively short period of time. I think just as long as, I don't want to do a new motion or anything like that, just as long as it's understood that this has been happening recently, not over years.
Yep. Good. Thank you for that. Any other comments from members of council? No. Just before I call the vote, I'm just going to ask the CEO to comment in terms of workload or impact of the work plan, should this motion be supported.
I would look to our manager of public works to provide some insight as it pertains to a timeline. I know that this is something we discussed in February when we came with the summary report. Also noting that when we come back to council, the report will be provided for information purposes as a motion. So over to you, manager, just to provide a timeline perhaps.
Yeah, timeline. So I'll start off with workload first, if you don't mind. So it will be Superintendent Nicholson will be doing we'll be doing the report with myself with the assistance of it. We've already started some of the information. We got information back from Aqua for the number of main breaks in the whole system, and then we've also started with some of the data collection and the next steps that came out of the hot wash. That's correct, clerk. I think it was from the boil water advisory. And then so then the timeline will be likely in the next probably gonna be in June or be August when we're done.
If I could add just the workload, because it prompted something for me as I've reviewed our departmental work plan in the last week to understand kind of where things are trending. We would commonly come to council in August with an update to our departmental work plan. So these projects as they arise, We will communicate to council what may be impacted in the departmental work plan as a result of this notice of motion or other impacts like staffing, like human resources. And the expected date is I think August 6th is the scheduled meeting for that. So we would commonly come in August with that. We could highlight the workload impacts. But as managers noted, June or August, September would be the timeline. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. No other questions from members of council? No, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Good. Next is correspondence. There are no items on our agenda requiring direction, and a number of information items, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, this is different than the one I read online. Okay, she's already updated one. Okay, so there's 9 information items here listed. I'm not going to go through them unless a member of council would like to pull one out to ask questions or discuss. I should say, extend that. I'd even offer that to staff. So, Councillor Moore, you.
Just one that I think maybe you could comment on, and it's a county council summary. And I think on the 3rd page, there's something in there that refers to Whitewater with an ambulance base. Did you see that? Our people at home that may be reading this may see it and not quite understand it. So is this the time that you can announce something or not? Sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, it's perfect. I'm going to go back and just confirm the language that showed up, only because we had closed meetings and open meetings.
Third bullet, corporate services committee.
Yeah, it's 3rd page. 2nd bullet. Oh, sorry, 3rd bullet.
3rd page. Sorry, 2 seconds. DMP.
Corporate Services Committee.
It's on page 5. He's close on paper. Sorry, page 5 there.
Yes, all that's available on this is that we authorized an application for funding to do that capital works, but I can't speak about. It's clearly about a paramedic base in Whitewater region, but I can't speak to those details as they were still being negotiated.
Okay, thank you.
So it will come. It just needs more time. Good, CAO, unless there was something you wanted to add on that one? Okay. Is there any other items that members of council want to pull off of that list for information? Good, because I have to pull one. Yeah. Good, I see none, so I'm going to pull the item H, which is the Protection Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act recommendations from municipal leaders. Yeah. The municipal notification changes to Protect Ontario by Building Homes Faster. Here you'll see a letter that was that I received from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, notifying of a number of changes that are being taking place across a number of different acts, asking us for feedback on 2 different dates, June 11th and June 26th. And it's significant. We're talking, you can flip through here, I'll just highlight the titles. Building Code changing, Development Charges Act changing, Planning Act changing, Ministry of Infrastructure Act changing, Transit Oriented Communities Act changing, Ministry of Transportation, Schedule 2 changing. Not all of these apply to us, but there are significant components of a couple of them that do. What I'd like to do is seek staff to come back to council if there's any requirement to endorse a position in terms of feedback that has to go back to these ministries. And I'm looking to the CAO to confirm that.
So I've gone through the list. So there could be one area to explore. So perhaps we could return to council with some type of whether it's a report or a letter on behalf of the township on a particular item. Yeah, certainly. Our next meeting would be early June, which would give us the time. So yeah, perhaps we could try it. If it's warranted, we could bring a short report to council on an item. Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Does it trigger any other comments from council? Good, thank you. Item 12 is announcements, and we'll start with the Deputy Mayor.
I'm good right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Good. Councillor Bell.
Nothing for me.
Councillor Olmsted. There's no Councillor Tabbert to...
Tonight was my opportunity, but I'm going to pass on it, thank you.
Good. Councillor Moore.
I have Councillor Tabbert. I was asked to comment on summer camps coming up. There's 2 in Whitewater and one in Westmeath on July 8th to the 11th, and the other one is in Cobden, August 5th to the 8th. But in coordination with this, there was also get your bike repaired at the same time in cooperation with these camps on the summer. So if you need that, I'm assuming, I look at the clerk, is this on our page, our web page?
That's a good question.
I don't know. So if anybody has any questions at home, please feel free to call the office then, and somebody will put you in touch or send you a copy of it via email. And the other one is there's a library trivia night coming up this Friday at the Cobden Legion. So if you want to get educated, sign up. That's all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm just looking at the manager of community services. Do you have any details on how the PA day went here with Boys and Girls Club?
Unfortunately, the PA day didn't go. It was canceled. There was no kids that registered.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next PA day camp will be in Beachburg in June. I believe the date is June 6th. So they're hoping they get registration for that.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Trim?
Nothing right now, thank you.
Excellent. I just have a couple things I'll share. There is a Gilchrist 50th wedding anniversary this weekend. That's taking place at the Legion. I think the WDRA has a breakfast this Saturday. It was canceled this Saturday too? Okay, good. Oh, sorry. Thank you, guys. Beachburg United Church has a 100th anniversary on June 1st. So another 100 years. And the FCM conference is taking place in Ottawa at the end of the month, and I have registered, thanks to Councillor Bell reallocating some of his funds to allow me to attend on behalf of council, and that I'm hoping to hopefully come back to council with some more information at the federal level of issues with our new government. So good, those are my announcements. Next item on the agenda is bylaws. On our agenda, we have 6 bylaws plus the confirmatory bylaw. The recommendation is that be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the May 21st, 2025 agenda be taken as read and passed. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bell. Is there any final comments or questions from members of council on the bylaws listed? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Item number 14 is a closed session, and I'll just get the CAO to confirm, is that closed session required today?
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead with it. It'll be very short. Thanks.
Excellent. So the closed session, item 14.1 is a Community Development Department, Office of the CAO. So the recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region move into closed session as per Section 9 of the procedural bylaw at 6:52 p.m. to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, with the CAO remaining in the room. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Olmsted. And we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Any opposed? One. It's carried.